Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Straight ahead, America's Attorney General is in the hot seat defending his Justice Department. We'll show you why. Plus,
these are like children and grandchildren to us, besides being part of our church family.
We learn more about kidnapped missionaries in Haiti as the threats against their lives heighten. Plus, hopes of tourism picking up in the Holy Land for the first time since the pandemic lockdown, and one boy's dream come true as a super fan of one NFL quarterback. All those stories are next.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we begin this half hour with the Christian Aid Ministry Group calling for prayer for the 17 members of its group kidnapped in Haiti to be brought home safely following a bold threat by the gang leader accused of kidnapping them. One pastor affiliated with the group told Good Morning America he and his congregation are close with one of the families among those kidnapped.
The father of the group was there to teach other church leaders in Haiti, and so basically it was just beginning. These are like children and grandchildren to us, besides being part of our church family.
The gang boss says the hostages will be killed if his demands are not met. He also threatens Prime Minister Ariel Henry and the chief of Haiti's National Police while speaking in front of coffins holding several members of his gang who were recently killed. Authorities have said the 400 Nawazu gang is demanding $1 million for each of those kidnapped Saturday, though it isn't clear if that includes the 5 children among the 16 Americans and 1 Canadian who were taken, along with their Haitian driver, during a visit to an orphanage. Meanwhile, conditions worsening in Haiti. Demonstrators burned tires and blocked roads, protesting the economic collapse of the country amidst ongoing violence and other problems. The chief of police stepped down Thursday, and the demonstrators want the prime minister to do the same. Election integrity, the January 6 riots, and threats against school officials, all contentious topics related to the Justice Department. And under fire, Attorney General Merrick Garland answering tough questions in a congressional hearing. CBN senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon is on the story.
The Attorney General detailed his vision for the Justice Department before a House Oversight Committee, and right off the bat, controversy.
Raise your right hand.
Even before the Attorney General's swearing in, fireworks.
Did we ever vote on that? That's a clever written statement, but a protocol is not a rule.
Popping off over a failure to provide proper notice to play a video of a school board meeting.
Obviously, you're going to censor us, which is sort of the conduct of the left today, it seems.
This ahead of Attorney General Merrick Garland's opening statement, laying out his vision for the DOJ.
On my first day in office, I spoke about 3 co-equal priorities that should guide the department's work: upholding the rule of law, keeping our country safe, and protecting civil rights.
Those 3 priorities pitted against claims of election fraud, charges in the January 6 riot, and a country grappling with a debate over the public school system's role in social issues and COVID mandates.
Not in a million years did we dream that one day we'd see the Justice Department treat American parents as domestic terrorists.
The AG skewered over a Justice Department memo instructing the FBI to address threats against school officials.
Is there legal precedent for the Department of Justice to investigate peaceful protests or parental involvement at public school meetings?
We would never do that. We are only concerned about violence, threats of violence.
After a national school board missive to President Biden said clashes and protests by parents over public schools may amount to domestic terrorism.
What the White House told you to write the memo?
No one in the White House spoke to me about the memo at all.
Are these parents in Loudoun County and all these other school boards across the country domestic terrorists? And I think that is kind of the whole big issue here, and what's really getting Republicans in a lather.
Also at issue, the 2020 election.
There's no evidence that voter fraud impacted the outcome of the 2020 presidential election, true?
That's correct.
Garland reiterating the findings of multiple state audits across the country, proving claims of widespread voter fraud to be false. And in the midst of an ongoing Capitol riot probe, The AG outlining the DOJ's role ahead of a House vote on bringing contempt of Congress charges against Steve Bannon over the former White House counselor's refusal to cooperate.
We'll apply the facts and the law and make a decision consistent with the principles of prosecution.
The AG also facing questions over the Texas law banning abortions in the state and the DOJ's repeated attempts to block it in federal appeals courts. The latest attempt now heading to the Supreme Court. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Jennifer, thank you. More clearance by the federal health agencies for COVID-19 vaccines booster shots. Those receiving Pfizer vaccinations months ago are already eligible. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Thursday said specific Moderna and Johnson & Johnson recipients should qualify as well. The agency is also allowing the flexibility of mixing and matching that extra dose. There's new evidence the U.S. National Institutes of Health did sponsor the type of controversial research that could create dangerous viruses like COVID-19. It's not exactly proof about the origins of the pandemic, but it is raising some serious red flags nonetheless. Just the News reports both NIH Director Francis Collins and Dr. Anthony Fauci have also previously denied approving such grants for research through the EcoHealth Alliance and Wuhan Institute of Virology. But Richard Ebright, a lab director at Rutgers University's Waxman Institute of Microbiology, posted on Twitter he believes they have not been totally honest. He tweeted, "The NIH received the relevant documents in 2018 and reviewed the documents in 2020 and again in 2021. The NIH, specifically Collins, Fauci, and Tabak, lied to Congress, lied to the press, and lied to the public knowingly, willfully, brazenly." Now you can find this full story at cbnnews.com. Coming up, tourism in the Holy Land could be picking up soon for the first time since the pandemic lockdowns. We'll bring you the story. Welcome back. Another big biblical times find in the Middle East. Israeli archaeologists believe they have found the first of its kind engraving on a precious gem of a biblical plant. The find dates back to the time of the temple during the time of Jesus. It's a stone seal made of semi-precious amethyst stone with an engraving of a dove and a branch of a tree with a fruit on the branch. Archaeologists say it was likely the image of a persimmon fruit. The biblical persimmon plant is not related to the orange persimmon fruit of today. Instead, it is known in the Bible as the balm of Gilead. Our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. So Chris reported earlier in the week about the reaction. What are you seeing to the reaction of this archaeological find of the Crusade of the Sword and the gem from the city of David?
Well, Ephraim, archaeologists are describing both the sword that discovered in the Mediterranean Sea and the gem from the city of David as sort of pieces of the puzzle of the history of Israel coming together. The gem that you just saw is really one of a kind, and it shows, the balm of Gilead, just like it says in the Bible. Both these things are bringing history and the Bible to life. One archaeologist, or one person viewing that gemstone said it was just stunning, and really as like a message from history 2,000 years ago. The sword itself, which we've reported on, is 900 years old. But almost everywhere you go here in the Holy Land, Ephraim, you see the history and the Bible coming to life.
Chris, it's stories like these that make trips to the Holy Land extremely exciting, and there's word tourism is opening back up, hopefully in greater ways since the pandemic. Just how important is this to Israel and the Middle East?
Extremely important, Ephraim, and we know that it looks like November 1st, vaccinated tourists, individual tourists, will be coming back here to Israel. Tourism is vital to Israel. It's one of the biggest industries in the whole country. COVID, really back in March of 2020 last year, devastated the tourism industry. We're talking about tour guides out of work, bus drivers out of work, hit many hotels and restaurants and tour companies very hard. Some of them actually didn't make it. I saw an example of that yesterday in a gift store. It's still in business, but the sales clerk was telling me that they really are looking back for the tourists to come back, and that will be so important to not only gift shops, but so many other parts of the economy here in Israel. And it's important to the tourism as well, the tourists from all over the world. I think it's the #1 destination for many people to come back to. They're eager to come back here. Before COVID, Ephraim, Israel was setting records, more than 4 million visitors back in 2019. And they hope Israel really hopes to reach those numbers once again, maybe not right away for certain, because some people may not want to be vaccinated to come here, but certainly, hopefully in a couple of years, they'll be back to those numbers.
On another subject, tell us about what's happening from the Abraham Accords and the United Arab Emirates and Israel working together to go to the moon.
Can you believe that, Ephraim? You know, here's a story you wouldn't have expected. A few years ago, Israel and the UAE are collaborating on sending an unmanned vehicle to the moon by 2024. Israel did it back in 2019. Now they're going back with their Arab neighbor. Just a powerful example of how the Abraham Accords are really deepening, that these two countries that had been virtual enemies for many decades are now going to the moon.
Wow. So what's ahead this week on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, first of all, Ephraim, we're going to have an update on what's happening in Lebanon, Israel's northern neighbor. It's basically a failed state right now, and we're going to examine some of the latest developments and how dangerous these developments are for Israel and the Middle East. Will Hezbollah take over the country? That's a valid question right now. We're also talking about drones. Are they the future of deliveries and part of the fourth industrial revolution? They had a sort of a revelation of what was going on right now here in Israel. Talking about Aliyah, the return of the Jewish people is up. And right now we're talking about that 900-year-old sword as well, all going to be in this week's Jerusalem Dateline.
All right, looking forward to that. I want to remind you at home that you can see more from our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and his entire team on Jerusalem Dateline. It airs at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on the CBN News Channel. Of course, you can get it online or on the CBN News app. Still ahead, the heart behind one NFL quarterback and making the wishes of one of his biggest fans come true. We've got the touching story for you. Stay with us. Time for CBN Sports. Indianapolis Colts quarterback Carson Wentz is making headlines for something big he did on the sidelines. Our sports director, Sean Brown, is joining us now with more in this story. So, Sean, I understand this has to do with one young man who is a super fan of Wentz.
Yes, I am. It's a 14-year-old Giovanni Hamilton. You know, the Bible tells us in Matthew 5:14 that we are the light of the world. And for Carson Wentz, it doesn't matter if he's in Philadelphia or Indianapolis, he's going to shine bright for the Lord, providing hope to all of those around him. And so he took the opportunity to fly or bring out Giovanni, they call him Gio, from Philadelphia to Indianapolis to hang out with Carson, the team. Got a chance to hang out with Coach Frank Reich, talk on the Pat McAfee show, you know, toss the football around at Lucas Oil Stadium on the field with mascot Blue. And just hang out, and it's all because of his foundation, the AO1 Foundation, the Audience of One Foundation. And it's just fantastic to see that even though Carson is no longer in Philadelphia, he is still using his foundation to shine light and show hope to this young man, Giovanni, who he's been through a lot, man.
Tell us more about Gio's story with his health and his relationship with Wentz's AO1 Foundation.
He was diagnosed with a condition called Schwartz-Jampel syndrome, which is kind of like muscular dystrophy and dwarfism. And since the time he was 2, he's had roughly 20 surgeries or more. And through all of that, they still say that this young man has such a positive outlook on life, such a positive energy, a positive soul. And when asked about it, he said, you know what, life's too short to focus on negativity, man. And it's just a great reminder that, you know, everybody has a purpose. Everybody matters, regardless of circumstance. And so it's just a great story to say, you know, showing that, you know, Carson is like, hey, you know what? We are the light of the world. I'm going to show hope or give hope to the world and let you know that Jesus is still on the throne. He has a purpose for your life and you matter. And so just flying this young man out from Philly And Philly fans are tough, as you know. But this day, Gio, kind of shelved his Philadelphia jersey and put on a Colts jersey just for that day because Philly fans are loyal. But it's just a joy to see that Carson was able to provide this opportunity experience for this young man.
A bright start to the day for sure. What's coming up on Going the Distance this weekend?
You know what, Ephraim, man, I've got some great stories coming up. One of the ones that stands out is I got a chance to hang out with a friend called John Register. His name, again, is John Register, who is a Paralympian, former Paralympian, who two-time Paralympian, and just talking about how he amputates fear and how he inspires the world from his story, being an amputee, training for the 1996 Olympics, and had an accident while training and had to have his leg amputated, and how the Lord showed him and provided him a whole new platform to share and, again, shine hope and serve as a spokesperson for those with disabilities. And so powerful, powerful story. I love John, such a positive spirit. And he's got a word for the world, man. So that's what's coming up on Going the Distance.
Looking forward to that. Want to remind you at home that you can catch Sean Brown and Going the Distance this weekend on the CBN News Channel, Saturday at 6:30 and Sunday at 7:30, both in the evening, Eastern Standard Times. Coming up, the highly anticipated movie Dune opens up in theaters. We're going to take a look at what to expect, and we'll give you a movie guide review. We'll be right back. And welcome back to CBN News Watch. Lots from the entertainment world this weekend as one actor who played Superman is reacting to the DC Comics decision to make Superman's son bisexual. Actor Gary Sinise continues his work to help America's veterans. And we've got a review of the movie Dune. Here's our Mark Martin and Movie Guide's Dr. Ted Baer.
Dr. Baer, tell us what actor Dean Cain, who played Superman in the TV series Lois and Clark, had to say about this decision by DC Comics to make John Kent, the son of Lois and Superman, bisexual.
Well, Dean, who's a friend and has been to the Movie Guide Awards, and of course I say friend in a more distant sense, but I know him and I like him and vice versa. He loves Movie Guide, has made some very brave comments. He said that they're grandstanding. And, they're making, sort of the statement that Superman's going to be, completely woke and completely able to be bisexual, et cetera, which is absolutely absurd. So I'm glad that Dean said it and not me. Did I just say that? Anyway, and he's already gone out after Captain America and say that he should be demoted, that one of the new Captain Americas is also of an alternative lifestyle. So Dean has been very brave about taking the position that we have flaws. Every country has flaws, but this is probably the greatest country there is, and we should emphasize the good, the true, and the beautiful and try to get better. And he says these comics are not doing that. They're taking us down the primrose path of being worse and focusing on the wrong subject.
Now to Gary Sinise's new venture to help veterans with a very serious problem. Tell us about that.
Well, I love Gary. Gary's a good man. We used to go to all of his events, and he'd do events every couple of months. And I love his love for veterans. One of my 3 sons, 4 children, is a major in the Marine Corps, and he headed up as a presidential appointee of the Veterans Office at the White House under President Trump, and tried to deal with this problem. In fact, I went to one of his meetings where he had a whole group, let's say 5 or 10 people that were gathered together to deal with veteran suicide and veteran drug uses. And these are really competent guys. But it's hard for the government to turn on a dime, and they improved. But under the new administration, there's not that concern about improvement. And so I'm glad that Gary's doing exactly what we should do in a free market, if there's still a free market, and that's to be privatize the whole process. And I think he's working with a good group, and I'm proud of him.
Finally, give us a review of the movie Dune.
Okay, well, we screen almost 100% of the movies that open in 250, and I love Dune. Now, that said, Dune is not for little children. There's a lot of action adventure in it. Well, I was surprised because the action adventure, because it was produced by a good friend of mine, who's the head of production for Legendary Pictures, that he actually has taken our advice. He didn't put explicit sex scenes. There was only one or two moderate foul language. The violence, which is all throughout the book, and I loved the book when I was younger, is actually you never see the sword coming down or the person being cut up. So, but the action and the jeopardy is constant through the movie. Now, I've got to say that I've loved the book, and people who love the book love the movie. I think it's the first big, powerful movie. I think it's for, caution or extreme caution for adults. I don't think it's for everybody, or especially because we teach cognitive development theory. But Dune is a terrific movie. Now, people who've never read the book seem to struggle with some of the plot points. And so whether the director, Dennis, was able to do what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. I mean, that's what they were aiming for, is a new Lord of the Rings. And Peter cut out a lot of stuff to make it much simpler. And maybe they should have cut out more, but I think it moved fast. It was powerful. I think Oscar Isaac, there were a lot of the people in it who I know who've come to the Movie Guide Awards who are Christian. So I was impressed by the whole movie.
All right, Dr. Ted Baer with MovieGuide.org. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
It is time now for your Friday Faithful. I want to leave you with this thought. Expect great things from God today and believe this. God is about to do his greatest work in you. Believe that word and let this day be the start of God doing something new in your life. It will certainly make for a fabulous Friday, and it will be the start of a wonderful weekend. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to thank you so much for watching. Also want to remind you before we go that you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. You can find them in both places at any time. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Look forward to seeing you right back here, same time, come Monday. Bye-bye, everybody.